Today we are going to pull back the curtain on the single most important law that basically created the modern generic drug industry. It's the reason your medicine cabinet looks the way it does. We're talking about the Hatch-Waxman Act.
Seriously, have you ever stopped to think about it? Why can you get a generic version of a drug for a fraction of the price? Well, it's not by accident. It's all because of this incredibly clever, high-stakes legal game that was set up way back in 1984.
And to really get why this law was such a game changer, we have to jump in a time machine. Let's go back to the world before 1984, a world where getting affordable medicine was a whole different story.
I mean, it was almost impossible. The problem was, if you wanted to make a generic drug, you were facing this massive mountain. The law pretty much forced you to climb the exact same mountain as the company that invented the drug in the first place.
So look at this. Before the act, the old way was just a brutal, slow crawl. Generic companies had to run their own incredibly expensive, time-consuming clinical trials from scratch. Think about that. They had to reprove that a drug which was already proven to be safe and effective was, you guessed it, safe and effective. It just didn't make sense. Hatch-Waxman completely changed the game. It got rid of that slow crawl and basically gave generics a rocket ship.
So what was this rocket ship? What was this new path? Well, it wasn't a one-sided deal. This was a really smart compromise, a kind of grand bargain between the two major players in the pharmaceutical universe.
It was a classic give and take. On one side, the generic companies got what they desperately needed, a much faster, cheaper way to get FDA approval. Plus, they got what's called a safe harbor, which meant they could start researching a patented drug for their generic version without getting sued for infringement. But in return, the brand name companies got something huge. They could now get extensions on their patents to make up for all the years they lost while their new drug was stuck in the FDA approval process. Now, the key that unlocked this whole new world for generics was something called the ANDA. That stands for Abbreviated New Drug Application. And the word abbreviated is everything here. Generic companies didn't have to redo all those safety and efficacy trials. Nope. They just had to prove that their version was basically a perfect copy, that it was bioequivalent, which is a fancy way of saying it gets the same amount of the active ingredient into your body in the same amount of time as the original.
Okay, so for a system like this to work, you need a rulebook, right? You need one place where everyone can see the lay of the land, and that rulebook is the Orange Book. It's the official FDA list of every single approved drug, and this is the critical part. Every patent the brand name company says protects that drug. You can think of it as the official map of the battlefield, with all the trenches and territories clearly marked.
And believe me, a battlefield is exactly what this act created. It didn't just open the door for generics to come in after patents peacefully expired. Oh no, it created a formal, legal process for them to march right up to the castle walls and challenge those patents head-on.
Here's how it works. When a generic company files their application, their ANDA, they have to look at all those patents listed in the Orange Book and make a choice, a certification. The first three are, pretty tame. There's no patent, the patent's already expired, the patent is about to expire, so we'll wait. But that fourth one, paragraph 4, that one is a declaration of war. That's the generic company raising a flag and saying, we think your patent is garbage, or that our drug doesn't step on it and we're planning to launch early.
And this is maybe the wildest, most unique part of this entire law. The simple act of filing that piece of paper, that paragraph 4 certification, is legally considered an act of patent infringement. Let that sink in. You haven't made a single pill, you haven't sold a single box, but just by submitting that paperwork to the FDA, you have officially, legally picked a fight.
The second that challenge is filed, a very loud, very specific clock starts ticking. It sets off this chain reaction that pulls both companies into a high-stakes legal dance with a very strict timeline.
So here's the kickoff. The generic company sends a notice letter basically saying, here we come. The brand name company then gets a 45-day window to sue them for patent infringement, and if they do sue, which, let's be real, they almost always do, it triggers an automatic timeout.
And that timeout is for 30 months. For 2.5 years, the FDA is legally forbidden from giving final approval to that generic drug. This is huge. It gives the brand name company a ton of breathing room to argue their case in court, all while their monopoly on the market stays completely intact.
So you're probably thinking, why on earth would a generic company risk all this? The time, the money, the massive legal battle, what's in it for them? Well, the answer is a massive, incredibly valuable prize that is only available to the very first company brave enough to make the challenge.
And that prize is 180 days of market exclusivity. That's right, if you are the first generic company to file that Paragraph 4 challenge, and you win the court case, you get a 6-month head start where you get to be the only generic drug on the market.
And calling this a jackpot is an understatement. For 6 months, you're the only game in town besides the expensive brand-name drug. All the other generic companies that were lining up behind you, they're blocked. They have to wait. This first-mover advantage is worth a fortune, and it creates this powerful incentive for companies to go out there and challenge patents that might be a little shaky. It's the engine that powers this whole competitive system.
So when you step back and look at it, this whole system is just this brilliant, complicated, high-stakes balancing act. On one hand, it's designed to reward the innovators, the people who spend billions discovering new medicines. But on the other hand, it's built to create a powerful engine for competition that brings down prices for all of us. And so, after 40 years of this legal tug-of-war, you have to ask yourself, has this grand bargain actually struck the right balance? Is it helping us get the best of both worlds, innovation and affordability, for our health? That's really the billion-dollar question at the heart of it all.